The sport of athletics and long distance running is broken. As an avid runner and fan, I've seen firsthand the challenges the sport faces. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the things that I think are wrong with our sport, what we could do to improve them, so that we can help spread this amazing sport to the rest of the world in a bit more of a spotlight. So yeah, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this video on what's wrong with athletics and long distance running and what I would do to improve it. So guys, running is my one passion. I spend hours every week participating and watching, but unfortunately, sometimes when I sit down and stick on something like the Diamond League, I'm left distracted, I'm left bored. So what can we do to change this sport so that more people will head off their sofa, head to the local track to watch a local track meet, or switch on to the Diamond League to tune into some more racing? What can we do to make it more interesting and get more people involved in this great sport? Because currently, I think our portrayal of it is pretty dire. So guys, the first thing that I think is wrong with the sport of athletics or long distance running is the lack of exposure and engagement through things like TV or media sources. Now, if you want to watch athletics or long distance running on your TV, for example, take the Boston Marathon, in the UK you weren't legally able to access that. Now this is a big problem for the sport because these big paywalls, they just put people off in terms of watching. If younger fans can't get access to watching these sports, how do they even know it's taking place? Or how do they engage with the sport or the fans? So I think we need to improve the overall accessibility of the sport, reduce those paywalls, or if you're going to keep those paywalls, make it so that money's going to the athletes, because I don't mind paying a fiver to watch an event if I know that money's going in the prize pot for the race. So improving the accessibility and engagement of these sports through TV sources is a major thing for me, but also improving the actual quality of the TV space, if you like. For example, I was watching the Diamond League the other day, on for about 3 hours, but I ended up probably only paying attention for about 15 minutes. Now, as someone who absolutely loves the sport of athletics, this is not long at all, because I was basically switching off or doing something else when they weren't running. So when they were filming the field events or when they were filming the fans in between events, I would just switch off and lose interest. Now I think this is super important to condense the time between races to kind of keep it a bit more action-packed, but also maybe implementing things like a specific time for each event. So 7 till 8 is long distance running, and then 8 till 9 is sprint events, and then 9 till 10 is jumping, or I don't know, just an idea, but I think it just allows people to engage more with the sports they actually care about, and yeah, it saves me wasting 3 hours of my life watching field events. So guys, the second problem I think that exists in the sport of athletics and long distance running is there is not enough background story on the elite athletes that we follow every day in the sport. Now, when I invest into a sport, I want to know the people that I'm following, the people that I'm rooting for. I need to know more about their background, what they did when they were younger, how they got into the sport, etc. But unfortunately, there's such a lack of this when it comes to the elite athletes of today. There are some athletes that are coming out with this, and it's definitely improving, but there's definitely a severe lack of engagement between fan and athlete. I think the OAC Coffee Club boys, I think they're absolutely crushing it in terms of their fan engagement and sharing the details of their everyday life sort of thing. And I think that's absolutely imperative in terms of building relationships with younger fans and elite athletes, so people will follow the fan because they relate to them on a different level. And I think generally, as a rule, a lot of elite athletes are quite secretive with their training or their pre-race, post-race rituals, because they think maybe it's a little bit basic, but what's basic to them could be absolute gold dust to someone like me. And I think it's really important that we try and bridge the gap between the elite level and then the rest of the sport, if that makes sense. And I think this is imperative to improving the sport of athletics and distance running, to make those runners more relatable and just build that fan-athlete engagement. The next thing that I think is wrong with the sport of athletics, especially in the UK, is there is a severe lack of team opportunity in the sport. Take Japan, for example. They've got their ever so famous Ekiden Relay, where 10 plus runners will take on a challenge of 125 miles and see who can complete it in the quickest time. And those Ekiden Relay videos, they get 40, 50 million hits on YouTube because everyone absolutely loves partaking, viewing, and it's a great opportunity to get lots of sponsors and money into the sport as well. So I think we need to increase the opportunity for team events in the UK. I've partaken in a few myself, things like road relays, cross-country relays, but unfortunately the opportunity just isn't there. I think there's one cross-country relay per year if you don't make it to the next round, and there's one 6-stage and one 12-stage road relay. So is it maybe that we could introduce some track relays, something like 4 by a mile 4x5k, something like that. I don't know how the logistics would work, but just planting the seed of an idea of maybe doing some track-based relays for distance runners, not just your classic 4x400, and also just getting that camaraderie, getting that team spirit, bringing all of those club runners together in a competitive but fair and engaging environment. But yeah, so that's the third thing that I think is wrong with the sport. There's not enough team opportunities. So guys, the next thing I think is a pretty hard one for me to give a specific phrase to, but I guess the race spectacle. Like when you go to a local track race, they're pretty boring. Like if you're not interested in taking part, you're probably not going to go and watch. But something like the Night of the 10Ks, a race that I'm doing next week, has absolutely hit the nail on the head in terms of getting the spectating and athlete kind of experience down to a T. There's plenty of entertainment to watch in between races, but also during races. Say for example, you don't fancy watching a particular race, you can watch the circus act, you can watch the pyrotechnics. There's always something to keep you engaged, and the fact that there's really good quality hot food, like stalls where you can buy stuff and engage, and there's plenty of seating area, things like that. I just think there's simple basics that are quite often forgotten at a lot of sports. I'm so used to turning up to a race, picking up my number, and then I'm sitting around for an hour with nothing to do but maybe watch some people that I don't know run around the track. So I think the whole thing could be improved. I know this requires throwing more money at the sport, but unfortunately I think the sport has become a little bit a case of, well, if it doesn't benefit me, why would I put money into the sport? And I know that the world isn't as easy as just throwing money at it, but I think if more younger people are in charge of putting these events on, I think they're going to be generally better for the sport as a whole, getting more people engaged, getting local people that don't even run down just to come and watch the race because they've heard of how good it is. They could hear the cheering from the year before. Let's go, James! Or something like that. I'm not really sure if I'm phrasing this very well, but yeah, I just think if we add a little bit better quality to the sports, things like adding beer tents over the straights, things like adding a bridge so you can go and stand and spectate on the inside of the track. Things like fireworks, pyrotechnics. But yeah, just making the whole thing a bit more of a spectacle, something to engage and get some fans excited, basically. This kind of leads me on to my next point. I'm not sure if this is a major problem with the sport, but I do think the one thing that definitely needs to be improved in the sport of athletics is the commentary. So many times I tune into a race or a track meet and the commentary is so dry. Either they're getting pronunciation of names wrong. Stoiner, Matthew Stoiner. Which I guess it's fine, but it's those little details that are just so frustrating. I was watching a recent track meet, and I'm not going to name and shame, but unfortunately the racing was really good to watch and there was some really good quality athletes on show. But I had it on mute because the commentary was so dry and I was just getting so bored listening to the absolute waffle that they were coming out with. Ironic, because I'm waffling a lot right now. But you get what I mean. Anyone that's a fan of the sport will have the certain commentators, and you know who I'm talking about, that just make it it's actually like a bit annoying to watch because the commentary is so bad. It would maybe just take the sport up just that extra notch, you know? So guys, another problem I think that currently exists in the sport of athletics is that the cash prizes just aren't good enough. Now, a lot of elite athletes don't take part in certain meets because it's just not financially viable. If they've got to fly over to that country to take part and then they're only winning their flight money back, like it's just not really financially viable. So I think we need to start spreading the wealth of the sport, and there is wealth in the sport, there definitely is, outside of the top 1%. So instead of just giving all the money to the person that wins the London Marathon, maybe we can take some of that money and spread it across the people that are winning, say, British champs or other track meets in the UK. Keep it a little bit more interesting about where athletes are getting their money from, and also make it a lot more accessible for athletes. If you're talking from a British point of view and you're turning up to the London Marathon, unfortunately you just don't stand a chance of winning that total prize pot. So how can we get this money elsewhere and increase the prizes for other athletes to actually have access to? Some sports are really trying to do their best in terms of trying to make the sport more interesting and increase that prize pot. For example, the night of the 10Ks, you get £5,000 for winning, I think, or 6,000, and then if you break the course record, it's an extra 5,000. So that's £11,000 you could potentially win on the night if you win that elite men's or women's race. They're going to be making a lot more than £22,000 from that entire event, and I know there's a lot of things to pay for, but if you're one of the world's best runners who's earning quite a lot of money from your contract already, is £11,000 going to draw you into a race in London? Probably not. So if we can start to spread the wealth of the sport amongst more of the elite athletes, we'll see a much better quality of performance and a much kind of deeper field at most of these events. Instead of seeing Jakob Ingebrigtsen run away with it every time, we might see some challenges, you know, people with a little bit more money to go on those expensive training camps. I don't know how to explain it or how to bring it into real life sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's just something that could be improved with the sport, having a little bit more money where it counts, basically. So guys, one final thing that I think might make a bigger impact than some people might think, and it's just allowing athletes to have more than one brand sponsor on their kit. I think it's been changed to 2 now, but I think having a bit more of like an F1 style, allowing you to add loads of different franchises to your vest, would it allow athletes to generate more income from the sport, bring more income into the sport. For example, having brands that are maybe not related to the sport at all, it make it more financially viable for athletes to actually compete and take part as athletes. At the moment, it seems like there's only 0.1% of runners are able to be professional, and I know that's part and parcel of the sport at the moment. But I think allowing athletes to have a bit more sponsorship on their vests, have that extra access to more income, would just allow them to train better, have better training facilities, go on different training camps, for example. And I just think it makes the whole sport better as a whole, really. So I'm not sure how we bring that into fruition. So guys, I'm not sure if I voiced my opinions that well. I wrote all these answers down on like a little brainstorming thing earlier today, so I'm not sure if I managed to get my points across too well. But if you've got any ideas on how we can improve this really great sport, then drop them down in the comments, because I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think. And if you think I'm wrong, like, by all means, let's have a nice kind of calm debate in the comments. But I do think there's lots of things that we could change to make this amazing sport better. But anyway guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and maybe share this video among your friends. Try and get this video to as many people as possible. If we can get this to, say, I don't know, England athletics, British athletics, and they can improve some of the prize money or some of the spectator experience for the athletes at their events, then I just think it'd be just great for the sport. Anyway guys, thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share with your running buddies, and yeah, if it's easy, then what's the point? Peace.